better than your currency. Splurging millions, buying houses like Monopoly. Fucking 9 to 5, man, the money is a joke to me. Buying cryptocurrency, my money in the privacy. I make it rain dollars, they watch me disappear. I'm so
Hey guys and girls, welcome to this week's episode of the No BS with Birchy podcast. I'm your host, Nathan Birch. This is a show unraveling the truth to the facade of the 21st century. We're now exiting the matrix and waking up to motherfucking reality. Never gets old, that intro, hey? Today, I'm answering questions from you guys in the community. Drop us questions below, wherever you're listening or watching this from. And my team put these questions together, put them in, and I'm just reading these literally for the first time now as I'm about to answer them. So they're real, they're authentic. I haven't thought of an answer. They're really off the cuff and natural sort of answers for your questions. So this question came in from Brett. It says, hey guys, roughly how much cash should be in a slush fund, cash on hand to cover costs when early investing, life cycle, example, solicitors, buyer's agent fee, bank fees, upkeep on properties purchased, incidentals, etc., such as outgoings initially greater than revenue, or can this be absorbed into the mortgage somehow? I think it's important to have a buffer. Some people will have a stupid buffer, like they might have 100 grand and their loan is only 100 grand anyway. So each person, it depends what your sleep at night factor is and how comfortable you are with debt. And, I guess for most people, like there's only 20,000 people in the country that have 6 or more properties in their portfolio. So it's a very, very small amount, less than 0.1% of Australians have 6 or more properties in their portfolio. And that's cool, right? That's cool because, we need tenants out there as well, right? But the last time you bought 5 properties or 10 properties in a day, a week, a month, a year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years was probably never before. So managing that change, it's a change in mindset, it's a change in belief, it's a change in, the person you have to be to get to the other side. So how you manage that risk is totally down to yourself. What I normally recommend for people is to have a buffer of about 5 grand in case, kitchen gets damaged or the bathroom gets damaged or your tenant doesn't pay rent for a few months, whatever the case might be. Keep a buffer of about 5 grand. If you have a 5 grand buffer and then you start seeing problems, well, then you can start, generally people can save up $500 a week, $200 a week, whatever you can save up a week, it all adds up. If you can save up $200 a week in a month, that's like $800 to $1,000. Over 5 months, 6 months, you're going to change that from 5 grand to 10 grand. But I try not to get people to get less than the 5 grand in the buffer. When buying a property, I like to use a 20% deposit and then plus closing costs. Closing cost stamp duty is about 3% of the purchase price. And then legal fees and stuff like that, probably another 1%. If you're using a buyer's agent, you'd look at the buyer's agent fee, whatever that is for the buyer's agent that you're using. If you're using us, some people don't have all the cash and they might opt for a payment plan. So we can do a payment plan over 12 months, which makes it easier. So you don't need to, have all that cash up front and you can absorb it over cash flow over 12 months. But let's say you got 20%. Then you've got 3% plus another percent, that's 24%. I generally work on about 24-25% of purchase price is what you need to have cash on hand. And I think a question, just skimming over the top, one of the questions was how much is the least amount to get started in a property journey? So, do you need $200,000? As I think the question is more around, is it 200,000 that you need? Do you need 50 grand? What's the littlest amount? So if you're buying a property for $100,000, you need 25%, you need 25 grand. If you're putting down a 10% deposit, you need 10% plus 4%, that's 14%. 14% of 100 grand, you really could get into it for as little as, $15,000 into a property. So, a lot of people think you need massive amounts of cash to get into a property or massive amounts of equity. If you've got 15 grand, if you've got 20 grand, if you've got 30 grand, you can still get started with buying properties and get on your journey with a smaller amount of money. You don't need to have so much. Obviously, the more money you got, the more deposits you got, the more properties you can catch, the more hooks in the ocean, the more chance of equity growth, cash flow coming into your position and bottom line. So I think it's important to look at that. The second question is, Julie, how do people assess replacing income type goals taking in future inflation into account, i.e. if I retire today, 50 grand would be suffice, but in retirement age in 15 years, would it be suffice? well, if we look at the cost of everything, I was just at the shops this morning, and I buy this water. It's in a bag. I forget the name of it. It's water in a bag. It's in a box, and it's clean water. It's good. It's the best water out there. It used to be $8.55 a year ago, 18 months ago, and now it's $9.60. And Coles had a price lock, and it goes price lock $9.60. Confirmed, locked in until the end of January 2023. I'm thinking that's only a month away. It's going to go up again, right? And we look at that, that's gone up by like 10%. It's going to go up another, whatever it goes up by. Your food, remember going and buy a bag of chips for $2? You get a big bag of chips, normally hand cut. Now they're all frozen, processed food, whatever. And, it might cost you for a little packet of chips, a little cup of chips, like $8, $10. Inflation is eating away your purchasing ability. The reason why I like property as a vehicle is that if you look at, if you want 50 grand a year passive income, you might only need 3 or 4 properties. Say 4 properties owned outright today, 200 grand a property. So it'd be like 200 grand times 4. That'd be 800 grand worth of asset that you need to purchase, and that'll get you 50 grand a year income. But if we look at rents, the water's gone up by 10%. Your bag of chips has gone up by 20%, your car, your petrol, all that's gone up by 10, 20, 30%, whatever it is. What's happened with the rents, right? Rents that used to be $200 a week are now $300 a week. So it's gone up like 20%, 30%, 40%. The rents are rising as well. So the thing I love about property is that when inflation hits, it's not linear. Not everything goes up at once. It might be 2 years, might be 5 years, might be 10 years. Like inflation comes around, it finds a hole, and nothing's safe from inflation. Everything gets inflated away. But when the asset gets inflated away, the debt still stays the same. You bought the property for 100 grand and now it's worth $1 million. Your debt is still 100 grand. It's easy to pay off the 100 grand now. But when you bought the property, it wasn't easy to pay that off. And it's because the asset's been inflated, so the value's gone up. The rental income has been inflated, so the rent has gone up, and your cash flow's gone up, and it's improved. So, looking at that, I'd say that your property portfolio would go up with inflation as well. Question 3 from Sarko says, do you think there will be more job losses next year? Yes, I think that we're already starting to see that. If you look at all the tech companies, the big Wall Street companies, the public listed companies out there, the job losses are getting greater and greater by the day, the week, the month that passes. They're not being reported as they probably should be. There's a lot of people that don't have jobs. There's a lot of people that can't find staff, but there's a lot of job losses happening out there, and that's because we're in a pretty big recession as it is already. And I think that will get a lot worse as the next year comes by. And I've always talked about, just going back on that point as well, I've talked about having a recession-proof property portfolio since I've been making these videos like 15 years ago. And with the recession-proof portfolio, it's not sexy, it's not flash, but the fundamentals are very, very strong there to support, certain things. And building a recession-proof portfolio, there's so many people out there that have bought properties and gone, I'm going to pay 800 grand for the property, and that property's gone from 800 grand to it's renting out for $600 a week. It might have been okay when an interest rate was 3% and it was fairly neutral at that point, but now the interest rate's gone up, the rent hasn't gone up, and there's a big gap there. So that's where I think a lot of people are going to get stuck, and that's where I see stimulus packages coming in, and having a recession-proof property portfolio is one that knows, okay, worst case scenario, we saw what happened in 2020, don't need to say what it was all about, but what happened in 2020, and if that happened, then everyone's on Centrelink. People lose their jobs, they can still afford to pay their rent, they're getting it covered from Centrelink. So you want to make sure you're buying affordable accommodation and affordable properties for people to be able to afford to pay the rent in a recession. Back in the old days, you see a recession, the Ferraris, Lambos, Beamers and all that come up for sale. The Camrys and Corollas and all the Hyundais and all that are the ones that are more in demand because people can afford the normal cars but they can't afford more expensive cars. The same thing applies with property because that's just what it is. Kane asks, any thought on future government programmable money that can expire, turn on and off within days? A friend of mine told me it is coming. Well, a friend of mine told me it's coming too, right? And looking at, the the information that's out there. China is like a test case scenario. Basically, look at everything that's happening in China, and that's slowly but surely being rolled out across the world. We're losing our rights, we're losing our freedoms, we're losing our ability. Nothing has ever, think about this, since the time you were born, right? I remember as a kid, right? You didn't have your seatbelt on, good luck, you go through your own window, right? You drive through an area. There was no such thing as a 50k area. There was no such thing as mobile cameras, speed cameras, all these sort of cameras. Do you not think people go, oh, you're going to get done for being on your mobile phone? Yes, it is bad being on your phone. I don't encourage it, right? But who remembers when you were back 10 years ago, 15 years ago with a CD? Imagine having that big flip book of CDs going, oh, which CD do I put in now? Oh, the tin lids, or do I put in bloody Hands and Umbop? What do I put in my car, right? People, the world that we see is just getting more and more controlled. They can turn you off. They can turn off your social media. They can turn off your business. They can turn off anything they want. They can turn off your bank account. And that's where they're going. Because if you turn and locked out of the system, well, then you can't work in the system. You can't have access to anything in the system. You can't participate in the system, and you're going to be forced out financially. And if you are forced out financially, then you're going to be at mercy to that system. So it's basically enslaving people even greater than what it already is. And I think that, programmable money, central bank digital currencies, money with an expiry date, all these things are coming to the world that we live in. And we've been talking about it for many, many years, talked about it since 2018. I've been saying it out there. Universal basic income, different types of stimulus packages, they're all here. They're all starting to be rolled out at the moment. You dob on someone, you'll get a few extra points. If you do something bad, you throw the rubbish out of your car, you're going to lose a few extra points. You don't comply with the health orders out there, they're going to remove some points. These things are reality of what's happening at the moment. Dave asks here, hey Nathan, what is your thoughts on the inflation data in the US coming out last week, lower than forecast in here? So looking at the US inflation figures, they're actually coming out now saying that inflation is falling. And no shit, right? They've made all this money. The only reason why inflation ever existed was not because of China, was not because of Russia, was not because of Corona, it wasn't because of anything else apart from the fact that they just kept on printing so much money. And the world became awash of this cheap, easy money. And it had no value. Now they're removing that money from the system, or the currency from the system that they've created. And surprise, surprise, we're seeing a reversal in monetary policy, but also reversal in inflation and whatnot. We are heading into a massive, massive recession, which will be a depression. And I'm 100% confident we will see a depression. But the depression that we will see, I think, will be very different to what people expect, right? People are now thinking, okay, inflation is going to go down, inflation is too high, etc., etc. Everyone thinks, interest rates gone up. It's only temporary, right? 6 months ago, interest rates were going down, right? 6 months ago, the world was a different place financially. Because they've sucked all this liquidity out, it's having an impact. What happens in another 6 months? What happens in another 12 months? It's mathematically impossible for us to get out with them removing all the liquidity from the system and for us to keep the world we're having. They're going to have to change policy very quickly. They're going to have to re-liquidify the market. But the problem is when they start injecting liquidity in the market, they're going to have to go further than what they did last time, which was create even large levels of inflation. And that's where I believe we're going to head into hyperinflation. But this is just part of the cycle. I didn't think that we would see interest rates go up to 300 basis points here in Australia, which are not yet, but they're pretty much there. But I think we're at the top of the cycle for that. Looking at all the data, I think we're going to see a reversal of monetary policy mid-2023. Just doing a few calculations there. And that's where I believe we'll start seeing things going in the negative territory there, which would be cool. The ultimate thing that we're going to head to is not a depression because people have no money. They're going to have to keep printing because everyone's attached to this cheap, easy credit. But what they're going to do is have to print so much of it, which will end up causing a hyperinflation. And we'll see something that's very, very rare out there. It's called a hyperinflationary depression. It'll be a depression because people can't afford shit, but that's because everything's gone up too high. So there'll be the have and the have-nots. And the people that have the more stuff, they can take away. They've got more things that have been inflated away. They're at less mercy, less risk to the system. So it's about reducing the risk on that front. Question from Josh. Global population just hit 8 billion. In a world, if there is a population decrease, wow, this year we've seen a fair bit of decrease, right? I've seen it around me quite a lot, right? Sad to see people no longer here, they're expiring. How will it affect the house prices and rent? Will Australia make sure there is no decrease in population? I don't know, I didn't know that they were going to do this. I didn't know that there were certain things that were happening that we didn't see. I didn't see that people were going to be forced into certain things and, losing freedoms that, were basic freedoms over their body, right? You lose the freedom to your body, you don't have many options in life. People are, population is decreasing in some ways. However, we can't repopulate the economy quick enough, right? We can't just keep breeding and have like heaps of 20-year-olds that are ready and, in the prime of their life overnight. So what we need to do is we need to migrate people. And I think Australia is very attractive on that front. We don't have enough people. There's a lot of people that want to move here, land of opportunity, all that sort of stuff. Tax the people, right? We need more people to tax. We can just open the gates and allow more migration. So, yes, I think we can re-liquidify our population by bringing more people in if they were to drop off. And next question is from Robert. When do you think the market will skyrocket again? The market will skyrocket when they change monetary policy. Very simple as that. The reason why, but when I say that as well, if we look at all markets, right, crypto's down, shares are down, all that. I actually did this question the other day and I asked people at a Christmas party, how many people had a property that doubled in the last year? How many people had a property gone up 50% last year? How many people had a property that went up 20% last year? How many people had a property that's gone up 10% last year? Right, people putting their hands up, nearly everyone in the room saying that properties have gone up like that. And then we look at it and it's like, what other asset has not fallen, right? Property ain't fallen. There's some markets that have fallen within the market, but I'd say that maybe 20% of the property markets have fallen slightly at 5% or whatever. But if you look at crypto shares, everything like that, the prices have fallen a lot further than that. And if we look at the other 80% of the market, I see that there's a lot of properties that have gone up this year. So, I believe we're going to see a mother of all booms, which is when they start turning these printers on again. They're trying to control it. They're trying to stop inflation. They're trying to stop a hyperinflation, but they can't control it because it just keeps going up and up and up. When they change monetary policy, it'll be 6 months or 12 months before we see the next boom. And I actually have a strategy in place to be a billionaire off the back of that just alone in the next market. And that is to go and control hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars worth of assets that I don't own and take them through that next market cycle. So very little amounts of my capital, very little risk going in, and I plan on being able to control because I can outbet the market because people are fearful of all the shit that's going on in the news. I can see how brainwashed people are, but from watching the news, so I see there's an opportunity to be able to control as much shit. Not only properties I'll own the whole time, but there's a big uplift there in that market. And I see that I've got an opportunity to be able to take advantage of that, not just for myself, but for my investors as well that I work with from a buyer's agency perspective. Phil says here, they are saying rates going up until mid next year. What are your thoughts? Well, I didn't see interest rates going up this high. I've done recalculations on where things are at. I believe that we're at the top end of the monetary cycle from where they can push it. So maybe an extra 0.25%. Interest rates go up another percent. People are dying already financially. We haven't even seen the fixed interest rates expire, which is a lot of them expiring in March 2023. What happens when someone is on 2.5% interest rate and it's now gotten to 6% interest rate? There's going to be a lot of people in a lot of distress, mortgage stress out there, and that'll put a lot of pressure for us to revert monetary policy and start reducing the rate. So I actually think by the middle of next year, we will start seeing interest rate reductions, but I'm not a financial advisor. This is not financial advice. And I'm just the crazy guy on the internet talking about my calculations that are out there. So I don't win them all. I think I'm right about 95% of the time. And my comments that are put out there and my reputation on the line, every time I've made these comments over the years, has spoken for itself. So just my thoughts on it. Kane says here, soaring energy prices are due to government replacing efficient coal versus processing 1,000 tonne of soil to make it 1 tonne of lithium for EV cars. Does not make sense at all. Narrative will change on coal once recession hits home. Thoughts? I think we're very well placed for a commodity boom, right? And that's why I've been investing in infrastructure in mining areas and mining infrastructure for the last 5 years or so. And a lot of my investors have done very, very great out of that. And I'm very specific with what I buy. And a lot of these places have taken off and they're gone from their bottoms. So I'm not seeing great value out there. But I went there when the value was there. Right, I went there when the value was there. So don't go and speculate on a mining boom. But I believe we're going to see, we've got a lot of shit in the ground here in Australia. That's one of our biggest resources that we have. Well, it is the only resource we have. And the ability for us to be able to provide that to the rest of the world. They can't go and shut down coal power stations. It's going to take 30, 40 years for them to be able to transition this stuff. If they do be able to reach that, which I don't think they are, I think it's a big scam to be able to sell more stuff. They can create all these Ponzi schemes around energy credits and all that sort of stuff that they can create. But I do believe that we're going to see, the need for that even speed up. And that's why coal prices have gone up double, triple, quadruple, 8 triple, whatever you call that, over the last little while, because it is becoming harder and harder. And you just think about the cost of transport, right? This is how the real inflation, the hyperinflation kicks in, right? The cost of petrol, the cost of diesel, right? You go to the pump, it's $2.40 to pump diesel. Pumping up a fucking Chevy 2500 Silverado, that takes it's like a poker machine, right? By the time you fill that thing up, it's like $300, $400. All the greenies will be like, Birchy, stop doing that, it's fucking, I don't like it, right? It just is what it is. I ain't the cause of this. The world has got big ships, big trucks. How do you get your food? You want to be good for the environment. Those trucks are causing the pollution out there, right? Everything's causing it out there. If they need to export coal, right, and the cost of diesel's gone up by 50%, well, that's one of the biggest expenses of traveling that. So it's going to put a higher cost on the coal. The coal price goes up. That means the electricity is going to go up. The electricity is going to go up. There's a one big feedback loop of inflation here. They can't change it unless the whole market implodes, but they can't, because the whole world will freeze up. So it's going to be very, very interesting. It's a checkmate situation. It's pretty deep going into these sort of markets, but it's a checkmate situation, and I think that's, it's inevitable that it's going to cause a hyperinflation. So last one here, 10th question is, the 11th question is here from Rob. Hey Birch, why do you intend to get rid of all of your debt after hyperinflation? You've mentioned this a couple of times. What worries you specifically about holding your debt in the new system? There's a point when the dollar dies, it dies, right? The reason why I want to pay off my debt is because by the end of it, they'll just say, okay, $1,000 is now worth 1 cent of the new economy, right? They will cut it down. It's what's happened with all currencies when they've hit a hyperinflation. They take and remove decimal places. They call it a new currency. And, it's like the pounds and the pence to the dollars and the cents, right? Going back in 1966 in Australia, in Valentine's Day, February the 14th, 1966, they changed currency from the imperial to the metric system. And we went from pounds to cents and dollars and stuff. When they do that, there's a value of a changeover of exchange. My debt and your debt and everyone else's debt is stuck from when we took that debt, right? We take that through 5, 10, 15, 20 years, right? Well, when you see a hyperinflation, a cheeseburger might be $1 million, your wage might be $1 billion a year, everything's out of whack, but the debt is still fixed at the value of what you took the debt out in. Before it resets and clicks over to the new currency, I want to quickly pay out the debt when it's worthless. So there's a point when I would want to pay out the debt. It's not now. I think that it's going to be over this decade, probably the later part of this decade. And it'll be very easy to pay out the debt if a hyperinflation occurs, because the debt loses all its value. Like it's like, well, it's cheaper than a cheeseburger to pay out the mortgage, but that debt was fixed in an old currency. And, it's like Face Off, that movie, Nicolas Cage and John Travolta, and they're all got the gun pointed at each other, and one shoots one, they all die. And I was like, wee, what a predicament, right? It's a predicament we're in. One trigger pulls another trigger, and we're in a position where this is like bloody, Chinese New Year, where all the fireworks go off, right? One thing goes off, it starts blowing up other things. So they've got to be very, very careful that they don't have, the whole economy fall down from what they're doing. They need to try and control inflation. If you needed help getting forward, being like everyone else, I hang around. The people that we work with, reach out to us, 1300 367 925. Email us, admin@binvested.com.au. Make sure you subscribe. Watch us, Google Play, Apple Play, Spotify, YouTube, and we're out every week with a new podcast. Catch up soon. Have a great day. Bye for now.
Like Bilal said, man, we're stuck in the matrix. This my advice, don't care if you take it. The dollar back to die, soon to be hyperinflated. This my 2 cents, don't care if you save it. Join be decentralized and you will see you've been lied to the whole time, and it's the irony, cause they do the exact opposite. You become a slave to the system. Enough your money, all they do is profit. There's no conspiracy theory, you better hear me. Crypto will set you free before the system does. I don't care if you do or you don't, but what I'm saying is the truth to the reason you choke. I never been a failure, excuse my behavior. Keep talking, haters doing me a favor. They all telling lies, I know what they been telling you. I'm the opposite, like Donald Trump of Australia. It's amazing, here for the taking. My time is never wasted, just getting wasted. These girls say I'm really breathtaking. I can't help it if I really